Dear students, so far we have been discussing about vectors and their properties. The last time we discussed about position vector and displacement vector in a plane. So we are going to carry forward that discussion on vectors, where the first thing we are going to study is multiplication of a vector by a real number. I repeat, the first topic for today is multiplication of a vector by a real number. When you have a vector quantity and you multiply it with real numbers are the ones which include all the numbers, may it be rational, may it be irrational, and what they don't include is negative sign under the root, because that is imaginary. It's not real. Because like this, can there be any number whose square will be -1? No. Naturally, there is no number whose square could be -1, because even when the negative numbers are multiplied, you're going to get positive. Even when the positive numbers are multiplied, you're going to get something positive. So under the root -3, -4, -5, it's practically impossible situation. You remember in class 10th you used to discuss quadratic equations, and in quadratic equations there was discriminant something like b square minus 4ac, and when you used to solve it, I think you had this stuff, something over here divided by something over here. It is 2a, I think. So anyhow, you remember when this b square minus 4ac was less than 0, which means if this stuff under the root was negative, you used to write no real roots. Remember that? No real roots. You used to write that. What is the meaning of that? क्योंकि ऐसा कोई number है ही नहीं जिसका roots negative हो. Like when we are taking the square root of something, we are looking for that number whose square can yield us the thing which is there inside this. But can there be any number whose square can be negative of something? No. Because even when the negative numbers are multiplied, you're going to get positive. So anyway, that was the discussion about real numbers. What is a real number? Real number means all the numbers that you all have heard of, except these numbers in which there is negative sign under the root, or you can say imaginary numbers, right? So anyway, when a vector quantity is multiplied with a real number, like you have force, and this is the force, and let us suppose I multiplied it with 3. So that means its magnitude is going to be increased 3 times. Since it's +3, so the direction is going to remain the same. Had it been -3f vector, the magnitude of course would have increased to thrice, but the direction would have been opposite because it's -3. Minus sign plays a very, very important role in the study of vectors. Remember that. Okay, so this is vector multiplied by a real number. When a vector is multiplied by a real number, its magnitude changes by the same amount as the real number is, but its direction goes as positive or negative. If it is multiplied with a positive real number, the direction remains the same. If it is multiplied with a negative real number, the direction changes. Now the next topic, vector multiplied by a scalar. Now, multiplying something with real number is different than multiplying something with scalar, because scalar is also quantity. Real number तो एक number है ना, उसके कोई units नहीं है, वो कोई quantity नहीं है, लेकिन scalar तो खुद एक quantity है, like mass, like time, length. Okay, so when you multiply a vector quantity with a scalar quantity, you are going to get another vector quantity. Like if you multiplied vector by a real number, like I multiplied force with 3, so that means I am going to get a new force which is 3 times the previous force. लेकिन है तो वो force ही ना. But when you are multiplying vector with a scalar, you're going to get altogether a different quantity. As an example, velocity is a vector. You all must agree with me over that. When it is multiplied with mass, which is a scalar quantity, you're going to get linear momentum. Do you know that? Mass into velocity is going to give you linear momentum. Now linear momentum is a vector quantity. That's why I said when a vector quantity is multiplied with a scalar quantity, you are going to get a new vector quantity whose units are not same with the previous vector quantity, whose nature is also not same as the previous vector quantity. And I'll give you some one more example. You have acceleration vector. Suppose you have multiplied it with a scalar called mass. You're going to get a new vector, force. It's as simple as that. So in this video, you basically learned about the multiplication of a vector. First with a real number, okay, and then with a scalar quantity. When it is multiplied with a real number, the nature of the vector is going to remain the same. But when it is multiplied with a scalar quantity, you are going to get altogether a different quantity.